Ever seen a wedding turn into a horror movie in under 10 seconds? Because mine did. And guess who the monster was? I was standing at the altar, grinning like everything was perfect. She looked like an angel, tears in her eyes, and everyone around us in full happy mode. I was living what I thought was a fairy tale. That was until the lights dimmed, and the screen lit up with something that would change everything. Back when we were planning the wedding, nothing felt off. The days leading up were a blur of pre-wedding shenanigans, endless jokes with the groomsmen, and my endless optimism. I remember the day clearly. I grabbed her hand and said, "I can't believe I get to marry you." There was a beat of hesitation, and then she wrapped me in the tightest hug, like she meant every word. Looking back now, there were signs everywhere. She was always texting, keeping her phone hidden away, and whenever I caught a glimpse of her screen, it was like she was hiding something. I just didn't want to see it, not on our big day. That morning, the vibe was chill. I joked with my best mate about how nothing could ruin our day. The crew was cracking up, and even when she glanced at her phone for a split second, I shrugged it off as pre-wedding nerves. Everything felt normal, even if I now know it wasn't. I pushed all those little doubts aside because on that altar, in that moment, I believed I was the luckiest guy in the world. But as we say, hindsight is 20/20. The ceremony started like any other wedding. We were at a beautiful venue, the aisle was lined with flowers, and guests were beaming with joy. The vows were said, eyes were locked, and emotions ran high. Then, just when everything should have been picture perfect, something happened that would etch itself into my brain forever. The lights went down, and everyone around me smiled, expecting a cute slideshow of baby pics, our trips to Paris, and the usual cheesy moments. I leaned back thinking, this is gonna be adorable. But then the screen flipped, and there it was. My wife, half naked, sprawled on a bed with some bearded dude who looked like he could be selling mushrooms at Burning Man. I swear, my brain shut off for a moment. The room erupted. Gasps, screams, and a collective disbelief that could be felt in every corner. Someone in the back let out a scream that made my skin crawl. Her mom fainted right there on the spot, and my dad, old man fury, threw a chair straight at the screen. Even the priest couldn't keep it together, blurting out Jesus Christ like he'd seen a ghost. I just stood there, frozen, like a fucking idiot, unable to move, unable to react. My eyes were glued to the screen, and I couldn't look away, even if I wanted to. Then I turned to look at her, my bride, and saw that she wasn't crying or pleading. She was smiling like nothing was wrong. That smile? It was like a neon sign flashing. "I got something to tell you." And before I could gather my scattered thoughts, she whispered in a low, almost conspiratorial tone, "I need to tell you something." At that moment, the room's energy shifted from shock to pure, unadulterated chaos. The screen kept rolling, every detail crystal clear thanks to that full HD setup, and it was all happening live in front of everyone. I couldn't process anything, just a mix of anger, betrayal, and an awful sense of humiliation. In the thick of that madness, everything started to click. Flashbacks hit me like a freight train. I remembered the odd little moments I'd brushed off, the way she'd always been secretive with her phone, the texts that came in at odd hours. It wasn't just about a one-off mistake, it was something deeper. Later, once the initial shock died down, she pulled me aside. With a calm that didn't match the chaos around us, she started talking. "I didn't marry you by accident," she said. Her voice was steady, as if this were just another normal conversation. "You were a job, just like the others." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She went on to explain that she was running something much bigger than I'd ever imagined. Together with her partner, the bearded guy from the video, they were pulling off cons on rich guys. They'd stage weddings, record every wild moment, and use the footage for their own twisted viral exposure or blackmail schemes. Apparently, I was just another mark on her list, and then it hit me. "You messed it up. I started catching feelings. I wanted to stop, but he didn't let me," she said, like it was the most natural thing in the world. I couldn't wrap my head around it. One minute I was celebrating a love story, and the next I was trapped in a con I never even knew existed. Before I could say another word, the bearded dude burst in, gun in hand. His eyes were wild, and jealousy was written all over his face. "You told me you'd finish this," he snarled. The tension spiked even higher as he demanded what was rightfully his. "It was supposed to be your last con, but then you fell for him, huh?" he spat out, turning the situation from a messy affair into a full-on showdown. I was caught right in the middle of it. One minute I was the groom, and the next I was a pawn in their twisted game. Everything was happening too fast. Flashbacks, confessions, and sudden bursts of violence all merging into one unending nightmare. At that point, I realized I wasn't going to be the helpless victim. Deep down, I had suspected something was off for a while now. I had been recording bits and pieces on my phone, little suspicions, stray texts, and moments that just didn't add up. And as the madness unfolded in front of everyone, I decided it was time to flip the script. I pulled out my phone, opened an app I'd set up for backup, and started streaming the entire ordeal live. "You played me," I said, my voice steady despite the chaos. "So I played you back." I had rigged the whole thing with cloud backups, facial recognition pings, and live leaks. Every second, every moment of this twisted wedding was being recorded and stored somewhere safe. The guests, now the unwilling audience, saw everything unfold live on the big projector screen. "Smile for the camera, assholes," I yelled, half joking, half serious, as I took control of the narrative. The bearded guy tried to make a run for it, but the chaos left him no chance. The bride, my bride, broke down in front of everyone, but it was too late. The entire internet was watching. Every social media platform, every live stream, every angry comment box lit up with our story. In that moment, I realized that I wasn't just a groom getting his heart ripped out in public. I was a guy who had turned a broken wedding into a full-blown spectacle. I'd become the unexpected hero of my own story. A few weeks later, things had completely shifted. The fallout was massive. She was gone. So was her partner. There were whispers about how Interpol even got involved, but I didn't need to get into all that mess. All I knew was that I wasn't married anymore, but I had something else now. A story that no one would ever forget. And to my surprise, I ended up with 3 million subscribers. Every time I looked at that ring lying on the table, I felt a mix of bitterness and satisfaction. You'd think I'd regret it, I thought, but honestly, it made a hell of a story. The ring was a symbol now, a reminder of how things can go completely sideways when you least expect it. I started sharing my story online, in forums, social media, anywhere I could. The reactions were wild. Some people couldn't believe how one wedding could spiral into a viral nightmare. Others said they'd never seen anything like it. Best part was the engagement. Every comment, every like, every share made it clear that people were hooked. They were living for every twist, every unexpected turn. I mean, who'd have thought that the ultimate wedding disaster could end up being the catalyst for one of the most unforgettable moments of my life? I wasn't just some guy left with a broken heart. I was a storyteller, and this was my moment to shine. I didn't stop there. I kept the momentum going by diving deeper into the aftermath. I recorded every detail, the shock on my guests' faces, the way the room went from a scene of celebration to absolute pandemonium, and the moment I decided to flip the script. I talked about every red flag I'd ignored and every warning sign that I'd brushed off as nerves or coincidence. I even got into the nitty-gritty of how I set up that live stream. I wasn't just a passive observer anymore. I was the one calling the shots. The guests were now part of my live show, watching as I exposed the truth behind the con. Every second of that wedding was now mine to own, and I made sure to capitalize on every twist and turn. I took the video online and shared it across every platform imaginable. The response was insane. People were debating what exactly had gone down, dissecting every second of the video, and arguing over who was to blame. Some sided with me, saying I was the victim of a well-orchestrated scam. Others couldn't believe that someone could pull off something so outrageous on such an important day. The internet is a wild place, and my story quickly became one of the most talked about events in online history. News outlets picked it up, influencers debated it, and even random strangers on the subway would ask, "Did you see that wedding video?" It was like I'd stumbled into a different reality, one where every wrong turn and every shocking revelation was amplified by millions. One day, while scrolling through comments and messages, I got a private message from someone claiming to be a former associate of hers. The message was terse but clear. There was more to the story than just a scam. Apparently, the con had been bigger, more organized, and more dangerous than I'd realized. That message sent another chill down my spine. It wasn't just about a ruined wedding. It was about a whole network of cons that spanned cities and bank accounts. I debated whether to follow that lead. Part of me wanted to dive deeper, to expose the entire operation. But another part of me was done with that life. I wasn't looking to get mixed up in something even messier. Instead, I decided to use what I'd learned and move forward with a simple truth. I was done being the victim. I was turning the tables and writing my own future. I kept the focus on my personal story, the betrayal, the shock, the revenge, and let the rest of the details fade into the background. I wanted people to see that even when life throws the worst curveballs, you can still come out swinging. And let me tell you, I was swinging hard. Every video I made after that wedding was a piece of the puzzle, a way for me to reclaim my narrative. I talked about the importance of trust, about how you should never ignore your gut, and about how sometimes the only way out of a bad situation is to take control and expose the madness for what it is. My words were raw, unfiltered, and packed with the kind of real talk that resonated with everyone who'd ever felt betrayed or shocked by life's unpredictability. As the weeks turned into months, my channel kept growing. Every time I uploaded a new video, the story of that wedding, the night that changed everything, kept coming back to the comments and the discussions online. People wanted to know every little detail, every behind-the-scenes moment. I didn't disappoint. I started sharing snippets of what happened right after the wedding, the rushed debriefs with the guests, the shocked whispers in the back rooms, and the intense look in my eyes when I decided to turn the tables. I made it clear that I wasn't just some groom who got humiliated on his big day. I was someone who took a horrific moment and turned it into a story of resilience and empowerment. I broke down how I managed to set up the live stream, how I backed everything up on the cloud, and even the adrenaline rush of watching the internet light up with my story. Every detail was there, uncut and raw. People started calling me a modern-day hero, someone who'd faced the ultimate betrayal and came out stronger on the other side. Sure, there were those who still sided with her, arguing that love can be messy and complicated, but most of my viewers saw it as a cautionary tale, a lesson on how, sometimes, the person you trust the most can turn out to be the one you never saw coming. I remember one particular night when I was live streaming a Q&A. A viewer asked, "How did you deal with the betrayal in that moment?" I didn't hesitate. I said, "I felt like a complete idiot, frozen like I had no idea what to do. But then I realized that if I just stood there, I'd be nothing. So I decided to record every second, expose the truth, and let the world see what really went down." That night wasn't the end of me, it was the start of something way bigger. The chat exploded with applause, and for a moment it felt like I had finally reclaimed my story. Months later, as the dust settled and my channel's numbers soared, I started to reflect on everything that had happened. I wasn't the same person who walked down the aisle that day. I had changed, grown, and learned that life could flip the script in the blink of an eye. The betrayal hurt, yeah, but it also taught me the importance of never taking things at face value and always trusting my gut, even when it meant stepping away from the one you love. I continued to make videos, each one more personal than the last, sharing how I managed to pick up the pieces and build something new from the ruins of that catastrophic day. I got feedback from viewers who said my story helped them see that even when life goes off the rails, you can find a way to turn it around. And honestly, that was what kept me going. The whole experience wasn't just about exposing a scam or getting my heart broken on live TV. It was about finding the strength to own my story, no matter how twisted it turned out to be. Every rough patch, every shocking twist, was a reminder that life doesn't always play fair, but you sure as hell can play smarter. I started receiving messages from people who were in similar situations. They told me how they'd ignored ignored the red flags in their own lives, and ended up in situations that felt just as surreal and devastating as mine. And every time I read one of those messages, I knew that my story wasn't just mine. It was a lesson, a warning, and a call to action all wrapped into one. Then came the day when the tables turned for good. I got a call from an old buddy who worked in digital security. He told me that he had been tracking online chatter, and that my story had become a major talking point in underground circles. Apparently, the operation she was part of wasn't just a small-time scam. It was part of a bigger network, and my wedding had been the catalyst for a series of investigations. I wasn't looking for a showdown or to get wrapped up in any more drama, but it was too late. The momentum was on my side. I decided to go on one last live stream, a final showdown that would tie up all the loose ends and send a message to anyone who thought they could pull off something like this without getting called out. In front of the same projector that had once shown our nightmare, I addressed my audience. "You played me," I said, echoing the words that had become my mantra, "so I played you back." I recapped every detail, the hidden texts, the secret phone stashes, the shocking video that turned my life upside down. I showed the evidence I'd gathered, every clip that proved the con was bigger than just one messed up wedding. The live chat was wild, messages of support, shock, and even a few challenges. But I didn't back down. I laid it all out, unfiltered and raw. That night, as I ended the stream, I knew that I had finally taken control. The internet was on my side, and my story was bigger than any single moment of betrayal. Now, looking back, I'm not bitter. I'm just a guy who got his wedding hijacked by a scam and turned the worst day of his life into the most unforgettable story ever. I lost a lot that day. My trust, my marriage, a piece of who I thought I was. But I gained something else. A community of millions who see the value in owning their scars and turning them into stories worth telling. Every time I see that ring sitting on my shelf, I remember the shock, the anger, and the sweet taste of revenge. I remember the moment I looked at her and saw that smile. A smile that said she had secrets, and that I was just another chapter in her twisted book. And yet, that smile ended up being the spark that lit a fire under me, forcing me to take control of a situation that was spiraling out of my control. I share this story not for pity, but as a reminder. Life's full of surprises, and sometimes the worst moments can lead to the best transformations. It's a wild ride, full of chaos and heartbreak, but if you're paying attention, you can turn even the darkest moments into something that sets you free. I learned that sometimes you have to record every damn moment of your life, store it in the cloud, back it up, and use it when you need to remind everyone that you're not someone to be messed with. I learned that betrayal can come from the person you love most, and that it's up to you to decide whether you let it break you or make you stronger. As I sit here today, with millions of subscribers who've joined me on this crazy journey, I'm reminded that every twist and turn, every shocking reveal, was worth it. The world may have seen a wedding go wrong, but I saw the chance to write a story that would never be forgotten. I turned a one-time humiliation into a legacy that lives on with every view, every comment, every like. I'm not just telling you my story, I'm inviting you to learn from it. Trust your gut, question what seems off, and never let anyone else define your worth. Sometimes the most unexpected twists can lead to the best chapters of your life. If you made it this far, you already know what to do. Subscribing isn't just clicking a button. It's your path to content that's actually worth your time. Hitting like? That's your way of saying, hell yeah, give me more of this. So don't hesitate. Make your move, and I'll see you where the real stories begin.